I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Bernie Sanders spoke in support of Medicare for All during a Senate Budget Committee hearing on Thursday. Sanders predicted that, quote, Medicare for All will become the law of the land. Here's more from the Vermont senator's opening statement.
1 out of 4 patients in America cannot afford the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. You want to hear about crazy, and you want to hear about an irrational healthcare system? Crazy is when a patient walks into a doctor's office, gets a diagnosis, doctor writes out a prescription, and the patient cannot afford to fill that prescription, becomes sicker, ends up in the emergency room or the hospital at greater expense to the system. My friends, that is called crazy. I'm tired of talking with people who are struggling with mental illness but cannot afford the mental health counseling they desperately need. Last year, as you know, a record-breaking 100,000 people died of drug overdoses. And I will tell you that in my office, and I suspect the offices of every senator here, we get desperate calls from constituents who say, somebody in my family desperately needs mental health counseling. I'm worried, but far too often we cannot help them get the care that they need. It is not there because in the system geared toward the profits of the insurance companies rather than the needs of the American people, we do not have enough psychologists and counselors. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough dentists. We don't have enough medical care providers. We spend twice as much as any other major country. We don't even have the health care providers that we need to take care of our people. And also, I'm tired of seeing people in my own state and around this country who are walking around with teeth rotting in their mouths because they cannot afford the dental care that they need, because dental care is health care. And on it goes. But let's be clear about something. And this is maybe the most important point that I want to make. The current debate that we're having on health care and Medicare for All really has nothing to do with health care, because in my view, this dysfunctional health care system cannot be rationally defended. What this debate has everything to do with is the unquenchable greed of the healthcare industry and their desire to maintain a system which fails the average American, but which makes the industry huge profits year after year after year. While ordinary Americans struggle to pay for healthcare during this pandemic, and we'll talk about the impacts of the pandemic on healthcare, the 6 largest health insurance companies in America last year made over $60 billion in profit, led by United Health Group, which made $24 billion in the midst of the pandemic in 2021. But it's not just the profits of the insurance companies. CEOs make exorbitant compensation packages. CEOs of 178 major healthcare companies collectively made $3.2 billion in total compensation in 2020, up 31% from 2019, all in the midst of the pandemic. According to Axios, in 2020, the CEOs of Cigna, David Cordani, took home $79 million in compensation, while people died in the middle of the pandemic. In terms of the drug companies, the pharmaceutical industry, not much different. Last year, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AbbVie, 3 giant pharmaceutical companies, increased their profits by over 90% to $54 billion. The CEOs of those companies also receive huge compensation packages. So it's what the debate is about. The debate we're having is whether we have a healthcare system which provides quality care to all in a cost-effective way, whether we have a system which makes the drug companies and the insurance companies and their executives very, very wealthy. Now, in order to defeat Medicare for All, these very powerful special interests, the drug companies, the insurance companies, etc., have spent millions of dollars against me, against other proponents, on 30-second TV ads, full-page magazine ads, and corporate-sponsored studies to frighten the American people about Medicare for All. And I think we're going to hear some of that being discussed this morning. And this is, by the way, exactly what happened before the passage of Medicare in the 1960s, which was often attacked at that time as being socialism. Meanwhile, Medicare is today the most popular healthcare program in the country. Let me give you just a few examples of the kind of power we are up against when we try to create a healthcare system that guarantees healthcare for all people. Since 1998, the private healthcare sector has spent more than $10.6 billion. That's healthcare money that people paid. $10.6 billion on lobbying, and over the last 30 years, it has spent more than $1.7 billion on campaign contributions to get Congress to do its bidding. We pay our healthcare bills. They take that money and they spend it on lobbying and campaign contribution. Pharmaceutical industry right now, this moment, has 1,500 paid lobbyists, including the leadership, former leadership of the Democratic and Republican Party, right here on Capitol Hill, doing everything they possibly can to tell us that we should not lower the cost of prescription drugs. That's how business is done in Washington. Well, I think many of us have a different idea, and that is that maybe, just maybe, Congress should represent the American people and not lobbyists and large corporations. So, what does Medicare for All do? What is it that some of my colleagues are so strongly opposed to? Well, what this legislation do, again, would do what virtually every other major country on earth does. It would provide comprehensive health care to all without out-of-pocket expenses, and unlike the current system, would allow freedom of choice regarding health care providers. No more insurance premiums, no more deductibles, no more copayments. And comprehensive means the coverage of dental care, vision, hearing aids, prescription drugs, and home and community-based care. The transition to Medicare for All program would take place over 4 years. First year, the benefits to older people would be expanded to include dental, vision, and hearing, and the eligibility age for Medicare would be lowered to 55. All children under the age of 18 would be covered, and gradually over a 4-year period, those programs would provide care to every American. Would a Medicare for All healthcare system be expensive? The answer is yes. But while providing comprehensive health care for all, it would be significantly less expensive than our current dysfunctional system, because it would eliminate an enormous amount of the bureaucracy, profiteering, administrative costs, and misplaced priorities inherent in our current for-profit system. On the Medicare for All, there would no longer be armies of people billing us, telling us what is covered and what is not covered, and insurance agents hounding us to pay our hospital bills. This would not only save substantial sums of money that will make life a lot easier for the American people, who would never again have to fight their way through the nightmare of insurance company bureaucracy and experience I think that almost all Americans have gone through. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office, and we're going to hear from them later this morning, has estimated that Medicare for All would save Americans $650 billion a year. So for my friends who are worried about the deficit, that ain't chump change. $650 billion a year is real money. Now, trust me, I do know this 30-second ads that will be coming from the insurance and drug companies that will tell you that if Medicare for All becomes law, your taxes will go up, and they are correct. But what they won't tell you is that on the Medicare for All, you will no longer be paying premiums, deductibles, and co-payments to private health insurance companies. And what they certainly won't be telling you is that Medicare for All will save the average American family thousands of dollars a year. Medicare for All will save the average American family thousands of dollars a year. Guaranteeing health care as a right is important to the American people, not just from a moral and financial perspective. It also happens to be what the majority of the American people want. 2020, 69% of the American people supported providing Medicare to every American. Let me conclude, and I thank my colleagues for their indulgence, and Senator Graham will have as much time as he wants. This is an issue not just of health care. This is an issue about what kind of nation we are. It's an issue whether we're going to turn our backs on 60,000 people a year who die because they cannot get the health care that they need, turn our backs on the fact that we live shorter lives than people in other countries, turn our backs in that we are spending almost twice as much per capita on health care as the people of other nations. This is an issue that has to be dealt with. Medicare for All will become the law of the land, if not now, but in the future, because this is what the American people want.